You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by MartinClinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to talk this morning about some new, it's actually very fascinating, the new look in cancer research. So I want you to enjoy this morning. Grab your coffee, and I'm doing that right now. So good to have you on this morning. Great discovery in cancer. Kind of interesting as we go through this morning. It is called immunotherapy, okay? So cancer in the last 50 years, research in cancer really hasn't changed much. It has everything to do with developing new chemotherapy. And as we know, it's sort of the slash and burn. Cancer surgery, followed by chemotherapy, radiation. Chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. If you can do it, take the cancer out. And I'm not criticizing that. It really hasn't changed in over 50 years, I guess. To me, they were looking for love in all the wrong places, okay, in terms of cancer, because they wait till you get cancer and then they treat cancer very aggressively with chemotherapy, surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, okay? So that's just the way it is. It hasn't changed, but there's a new trend coming, and that is called immunotherapy, okay? Where they actually are looking at a change in cancer therapy by looking at, well, let me give you sort of the headline. I read a study a couple of days ago, and this is what struck me, is they're starting to look at why the immune system, okay, your body's innate immune system doesn't go after cancer like it does the common cold, right? And so, this is where research is going into now. They're starting to look, very little research, mind you. The big money is still finding new drugs, new chemotherapy, okay? That was developed in World War I. It's actually, mustard gas. And it really hasn't changed. I mean, they still are doing that, okay? They're still giving variations of mustard gas. That's chemotherapy, guys. Like if you go into chemotherapy, well, everybody's got, a mask on, and they got danger, equipment that covers them up, because they're putting into the body of a person that has cancer very, very, very strong medication. And, really it's a big industry. And look, the pharmaceutical companies, God bless them, if they ever find something that helps with cancer. And chemotherapy, to some, it does shrink tumors. They know that. It shrinks tumors. The problem is the cancer's going to come back in the vast majority of cases. So when people say, I beat cancer with chemotherapy, well, yeah, you beat it at the time. You shrunk a tumor, but I'm more interested in what this immunotherapy is doing, and that is they're talking about actually trying to stimulate your immune system to fight the cancer cells, just like you can fight the common cold or the flu, right? Your immune system, your body's ability to fight. And this is the way I've always approached cancer. People come to see me, usually they have cancer already. And, I don't tell them not to take chemo or radiation or anything like that. I don't go down that path with people. I really don't. I tell them, look, well, in the meantime, you got to build your immune system. And this is what I'm big on. And now finally, there is research being done to build the immune system of the host. They're looking at ways of stimulating. Isn't it interesting? Okay, isn't it interesting when we look at this? What are they looking at? They're looking specifically at your lymphatic system and a certain white blood cell called the T cell. Now, you guys know me. I've been talking about the T cells for a long time. T cells are the Navy SEALs. They're the Pac-Men. You know, you remember that game, the Pac-Men? You know, they went and gobbled up all the enemies. Well, you, within your body, within your lymphatic system, have what we call T cells. And they're not macrophages. Like macrophages will go after bacteria and viruses and fungus. And they're like, I always tell people macrophages are like white blood cells. They are like Zambonis on hockey rinks. They do the cleanup. They go after viruses. They go after bacteria, whatever. But T cells are the Navy SEALs. They're the ones that really, really, really make your immune system go big time. And they, you know, often times when I look at people's blood, I often see the effect of these little T cells. When they're out, I tell them, well, you know what? Your body is really revving up, man, to fight. And this is my opinion. And I think I'm right, but I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. Okay, here's what I want to tell you about cancer. Okay? Every day you are fighting cancer. Yeah. You have cancer cells in your body every day. I believe that. And you might not agree with that. And a lot of, in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, and I'm sure a lot of physicians, they don't believe that. They believe you don't have cancer until the day you do. I don't think so. I disagree with that. For example, I always use the illustration. You guys know me if you've listened to me in the past. I always use the illustration. What I'm doing is showing you the tip of a ballpoint pen. The reason I do that is because for cancer to get to the size of a tip of a ballpoint pen takes at least 5 years. Cancer cells are microscopic. They're big time microscopic. You need an electron microscope to see a cancer cell. And they take a long time to develop. So unlike, okay, let me give you an example of breast cancer, okay? You're in the shower, ladies, and you're doing a little self-examination on your breast tissue. It's not a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. You feel a little lump, okay? You got a little lump there. Well, it concerns you because it wasn't there the last time you did it, and you feel a little lump and you go to the doctor, and I'm all for that. You go to the doctor, they say, well, you know what, we better do a mammogram. And they do a mammogram, and the mammogram comes back, and sure enough, they see a little something there, so let's do a biopsy. And then they do a biopsy, and when they do a biopsy, they see some cancer cells. Now, the cancer industry gets, wow, get in here, you got a call from your doctor, and the doctor brings you into the office, and whenever a doctor calls you and tells you, I want to see you, you're in big trouble. Because they never want to see you. They don't want to see you to say hi. They want to see you because they got bad news from the biopsy. True or false? True. And then now it's chemo, it's radiation, and you got about 5 seconds to make a decision. And again, I don't want to get into whether you do that. All I'm saying to you is this. You have had that cancer for a long time. It didn't come a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago is when you felt the cyst. But for a cancer to grow to the size of a cyst probably takes 10 years, never 5 years, because you're not going to feel a cyst in your breast tissue, especially ladies if you have any kind of dense tissue, breast tissue, that you're going to feel the size of a tip of a ballpoint pen. Okay? So, all I'm saying is the cancer has been there for a long time. And I believe your immune system knows that. Your body is fearfully and wonderfully made. Your body is made to fight that cancer. And now immunotherapy is now looking at that. What can they do to stimulate your T cells, your Navy SEALs, so that when they see a cancer cell, they want to fight it? And they're looking at some kind of a drug that they can give to you that will stimulate your immune system. So I love the direction they're going into. I love that. I take that great. I mean, this is wonderful discovery that they are actually looking at stimulating the immune system. Now they want to use a medication. I understand that. The pharmaceutical industry is doing the research. Of course, they're looking at something that they can make a profit from. And you know what, guys? Don't get mad at the pharmaceutical industry for profits. Because they spend a lot of money doing research. And they want their money back. They're public companies. I get it. Sometimes, the pharmaceutical industry, it's all bad. Well, they're the ones that discovered the antibiotics and painkillers, and I got no problem with that. It's the overuse of that. That is, when they don't, if you need a med, I got no problem with that. But what I got a problem with is that they wait for cancer to develop. And now they're trying to develop. But let me tell you what I already know. And we're on the other spectrum of education. But listen, what I'm saying is this. You already have those T cells. The pharmaceutical industry is looking for a way to stimulate your T cells so that they will recognize cancer cells. I tell you, they already recognize cancer cells. The problem with your immune system is if it's not fully charged. And I want to talk to you about that this morning because you can't control everything. But here's what alternative medicine already knows. Here's what we already know about your immune system and your T cells, the Navy SEALs of your white blood cells. I find this fascinating because the pharmaceutical industry and their new research into immunotherapy is just talking about stuff that we have been talking about for years and years and years. Build your immune system. So let me talk to you about what stimulates your T cells. Number one thing for your T cells to be stimulated. Think of your cell phone, okay? To give you an illustration. Think of your cell phone, okay? I'm actually doing my podcast this morning, my video this morning on my cell phone, which is fully charged because I charged it overnight, right? You know what that's like. You got to plug in your cell phone to charge your batteries. What plugs in your immune system? What plugs in your immune system? Number one thing that plugs in your immune system that charges the batteries of your white blood cells, more specifically the ones that come out of your lymphatic system, called the T cells. What do they need? What vitamin do they need? They do not charge themselves without this vitamin. You know it. Vitamin D. Yes. Vitamin D is the one that charges your immune system the most. But specifically for your immune system, it's vitamin D. D, the sun. We haven't seen the sun in Northern Ontario for months. I'm just teasing. Well, and anyways, in order to get your batteries charged from the sun, You need to be butt naked. Not really. You need to have your arms exposed and your legs exposed. The best two ways to get your vitamin D. So if you can't get in the sun, 80% of the population, 80%, do not have fully charged immune system because they are low in vitamin D. And I hate to be negative, but most doctors think of vitamin D as for your bones, which it is, by the way. But that's all they can think of. That's why they're so terrified that you are taking higher doses of vitamin D than they like. Oh, why are you taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day? That is dangerous. No, it's not. If you sit in the sun for 20 minutes, you get 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 from the sun. If you can't get in the sun, you need to take vitamin D, not vitamin C. I know there's research on vitamin C and cancer. I know that. I've seen it. I've read it. I'm not against it. I like vitamin C. I like my vitamin C. Coffee. That's Dr. Martin's vitamin C. It's better than vitamin C, coffee. I'm telling you. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But I want to talk to you again about the importance of your vitamin D levels. You need optimal levels of vitamin D so that your T cells, they have a little battery pack. Your T cells have a battery pack. And they need to get charged by the sun. And if you can't get in the sun, you need to take vitamin D. In order to charge your immune system, your T cells, your Navy SEALs, to go after cancer, guys. And I know they're looking for a drug to stimulate your T cells. I got it. But you want to stimulate your natural T cells out of your lymphatic system, and they recognize cancer cells by charging them with vitamin D. Yes, vitamin D, not any other vitamin, not that other vitamins are not good, but vitamin D is the one that charges your T cells. So what do I tell people? That the sun is the boogeyman, brought to you by Johnson & Johnson, by the sunscreen companies that want you to stay out of the sun and block the vitamin D by putting sunscreens on. For every person that dies of melanoma, which is this deadly skin cancer, it can be deadly. Okay, so I'm not telling you to go burn in the sun, but here's the facts, ma'am. Remember Dragnet? Only the facts, ma'am. Here's the facts. The facts are, if you are a person that's indoors most of the time, you are the one that's susceptible to melanoma, the skin. Look, there's 3 types of cancers. I talked about that the other day. Just generally skin cancers, there's 3. There's basal cell carcinoma. That is on the surface of your skin. Not dangerous. I tell people leave it alone, but listen, that's up to you. Secondly, there's squamous cell. Squamous cell is deeper, but it's not deadly. And there are cancer cells there. We all have cancer. All of us have cancer cells. You just don't know it. Anyway, I don't want to get too uptight. I don't want to get off on a tangent, even though I do every time I talk. But thirdly, there's melanoma, and melanoma is the one that spreads. Melanoma is the one that can go to other organs from your skin. I always tell people, look, again, this is my opinion. Melanoma is really not a skin cancer. Your skin is an organ. Like, it's just an organ that you see. And I believe that melanoma, the dangerous cancer, comes from something else. Your skin is the one that reflects it, but I believe it starts in an immune system that has a lack of vitamin D. That's my opinion. I believe that. If you have chronic levels of low vitamin D, you are much more susceptible, especially you ladies, with breast cancer, men with prostate cancer, with colon cancer, with pancreatic cancer, with liver cancer. All these esophageal cancer, all these cancers, people generally, very generally, and almost over 90% of the people that have those type of cancers have very little levels of vitamin D, because all they're thinking of, vitamin D is for my bones. No, vitamin D is for your T cells, your lymphatic system, your cancer fighting system that immunotherapy is now targeting. I get it. I love the direction they're going, trying to develop something to stimulate your immune system, but vitamin D stimulates your immune system. Guys, listen. Why do you get the flu in the fall, in the winter, and rarely get it in the summer? Use your noggin. Why do you get the flu? Why do you get the cold not that you can't get a summer cold, I know that, but it's rare, isn't it? Think about it. Use your common sense. Well, cancer. You need to keep your immune system strong, and the vitamin that keeps your immune system is not vitamin C. Vitamin C is good. I'm not against it, but it's nothing that charges your T cells like vitamin D. Okay? That's just a fact. And I know there's no big ink about vitamin D other than there's negative stories on vitamin D. Okay? Too much vitamin D. Oh, too much vitamin D. As if doctors in the emergency room, they're sitting there going, well, you know why you're sick? You know why you came in here today? You've been taking too much vitamin D. Like it happens once out of a gazillion times. But whenever it does happen, they see, oh, you've been taking too much vitamin D. Oh, it drives me crazy. And whenever there's one person in the universe that ever has too much vitamin D, one person, I've been using vitamin D for centuries, it seems. And you know what? Too much? Nah, it don't happen. Especially if you take vitamin D with vitamin K2, okay? If you eat a lot of cheese and butter, you get vitamin K2. And I know vitamin D makes calcium, that's why it's good for your bones. And you don't want calcium to stay in your bloodstream. That's why I like vitamin K2. I love butter and I love cheese. In our vitamin D, we put K2 in there just to make sure that you can take higher doses of it. But listen, it would take you 50,000 IUs of vitamin D a day for 6 months. Who the heck takes 50,000 a day to become toxic with vitamin D? That is research that has been done by the Vitamin D Council. They do research on vitamin D. I love their research. I look at it all the time. I'm a big on vitamin D because it charges your batteries of your T cells. Okay, let me talk about food. What makes your T cells go to sleep? What food makes your T cells go to sleep? You know this. What's the answer? What makes your T cells go to sleep? Sugars. Yes, cancer hates steak. Okay? So, on the positive side, you need vitamin D. On the negative side, for 2 reasons. Sugar. 2 reasons. You guys know this, but I'm just going to reinforce it. 1, it suppresses your immune system. Sugar suppressed, and remember, carbs and crappy carbs are going to be sugar in 5 seconds. Okay? So your bread, your noodles, your pasta, your rice, your cereals, your sugar, sweets, pastries, muffins, bagels, unless you make them yourself. And even then, white flour, Oh, Dr. Martin, I eat only whole wheat bread. Well, that's stupid because it's going to be sugar in 5 seconds. Anyway, so sugar, 2 reasons. 1, suppresses your immune system. Sugar suppresses your immune system, especially the activity of your T cells, your Navy SEALs. 1. 2, and there's so much controversy about this, you know. Dr. Martin, he's a quack when he says this. I've had oncologists tell my patients, Dr. Martin's a quack. Quack, 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 quack. I admit it, I'm kooky. I am kooky. Am I a quack? I guess so. What can I tell you? But listen. If you get a PET scan, we have a brand new cancer tool in Sudbury, my hometown. It's called the PET scan. It is an MRI on steroids to detect cancer. And before you get in the machine, they give you a cup of radioactive what? What do they give you? Right? They give you a cup of sugar. And then you get into the PET scan and you light up like a Christmas tree if you got cancer. The sugar goes directly to the cancer. Why is that? Because sugar feeds cancer. So not only does sugar suppress your immune system, it suppresses the activity. It's like you think you're charging the batteries of your cell phone, you unplugged it. When you have a sugar, you're unplugging it. Oh, Dr. Martin, it's just, I like sugar. Yeah, I know you do. Join the cast of millions. But it's not good for you. Sugar is the new smoking. The only dent they've made in cancer has not been done by chemotherapy. Is when people stop smoking. And it made a dent in the statistics. And now they're getting worse again. Even though that people really about, 20 years ago, really, in general, stopped smoking. And there isn't a doctor in North America that ever tell you, oh, you know what? The best thing ever happened to you is when you smoked. No, they'll say, no, that's not good for you. But when are they going to jump on board and say, you know what? The worst thing that you can do now, and smoking's bad, but most people don't smoke anymore. Most, not all, but not most. Stop consuming sugar. It suppresses your immune system. Plus, it feeds cancer. That's true. That's how the PET scan works. How can you argue with that? So the same oncologists that calling me a quack, I tell them, well, how does the PET scan work? Ooh, sugar. Yeah. Must have an effect on cancer. It must have. So guys, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So the breakthrough in immunotherapy, where they're putting some research now, the pharmaceutical companies, and good for them. I want them to do research. I'd love them to do research on vitamin D, but that ain't going to happen. You know why? The pharmaceutical companies will never do research on vitamin D. Why is that? Because there's no money in it. You can't patent the sun. You can't patent it unless they find a process to make vitamin D3 even more powerful. I guess they could do that. Just like I talked to you guys a few weeks ago on a podcast about the new breakthrough in a drug called Visipa that is omega-3 for the heart. And they have a specific process on how to do it. And that's all it is. It's just high DHA oil. That's all. So guys, that's what I wanted to talk to you about this morning. Isn't it a wonderful thing that your body is fearfully and wonderfully made? You can do the best you can. That's why I am so much for good food. And the sun. The sun. If you can't get to Florida, and you can't get to Arizona, and you can't get to California, you need the sun, guys. And the sun, which is a wonderful thing, you can take it in a vitamin D. It's very inexpensive. And you need to do it. Okay? How much? Well, look, here's what I do. I'm only going to tell you what I do. It's dark in Northern Ontario. Dark when I get up in the morning. Dark when I come home from work or whatever. Dark. We don't see the sun. Plus, we rarely see it. And when you see it, it's 30 below zero. Well, you're not sunbathing in Canada in the winter. You just don't. Okay, you don't. So what do you got to do? You got to take it. I take at least 8-10 in the dark months. I'm taking 8,000, sometimes 10,000. I use for Dr. Martin. That's what I take on a daily basis until I get to Florida, and then I get in that sun. All those Americans down there, they live in Florida. They never get in the sun. They're scared of the sun. My American neighbors, they're in the shade. Oh, Doc, I might get skin cancer. Ooh, that gives me a headache when I talk to them about that. But anyway, you guys, I love you. Share this with your friends. The new immunotherapy and the one that you have. Vitamin D, cut your sugars out. Love you guys.
You've reached the end of another Doctor is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.